Again, like they know, I like this place to be from the first sure. I think that's something we got to take ownership of. All of our fans, we got to take ownership of our team. This thing be all made, not allow other teams to get tickets and have any kind of momentum in this team. Thank you. God bless you.
And a pleasant good afternoon to you as we go live on this Kansas State Instant Reaction. It is a post-game reaction to the Big 12 Conference opener for the Wildcats today. An 83-73 loss to the 10th-ranked team in the country, the BYU Cougars. K-State drops to 9-5 overall, 0-1 in Big 12 play. BYU 12-1 or 13-1 rather overall, and perfect 1-0 in Big 12 play. My name is Dan Lucero for 580 Sports Talk. We are live with this K-State Instant Reaction on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Hope that you will consider liking and subscribing to the channels, the Facebook page, WIBW News, and again, the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Lots of content like this for you. Following this game, and we'll go ahead and we'll start here. The better team won. I don't think there's much mistaking that. BYU is the better team. In the headline, it says they were too big and too much for K-State. I wrote the headline. That's what I kind of believe is the primary story of this game. This is not a good matchup for Kansas State, and the reason it's not a good matchup for Kansas State is because Kansas State's bigs don't score the basketball, and they don't have enough of them. When Kansas State has to go big, their options are Doreen Buka, who is big, 7'2". He's the biggest guy on either team. He's big. Kamari McGriff is 6'9". Taj Manning is 6'7". Obi Kegaruka is 6'6". Good athlete. Taj Manning plays hard. Doreen Buka is, again, very tall. But when you play those guys on offense, you don't have to guard them if you're the other team. BYU doesn't have to guard, doesn't have to worry about Doreen Buka hurting them on offense, doesn't have to worry about Taj Manning doing anything on offense, doesn't really have to worry about Kamari McGriff doing anything outside of 3 feet around the rim. And he's a good finisher. I mean, Kamari McGriff is a good finisher around the rim, a rim runner, and can finish on some screen and rolls. Good at what he does, but he doesn't offer an offensive threat beyond underneath the basket. And Moby Kegaruka doesn't offer an offensive threat anywhere. So when Kansas State has to go to those big lineups, they lose a lot on offense. And the end result is they play too many guys who don't give them enough offensive punch. You're overly reliant on PJ Haggerty and David Castillo and Nate Johnson and Abdi Bashir to do not just all the creating, but the vast majority of the finishing. And that becomes a real big problem. Nate Johnson, who is supposed to be one of your best players, plays 31 minutes and scores as many points as you and I combined. 0 points for Nate Johnson tonight. 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 from behind the arc. K-State cannot survive that. They need their guards to do the scoring, to carry the weight. And for one of their starting guards to play 31 minutes and not score, that just makes it really, really hard. The other thing that makes it hard for Kansas State is when the threes aren't falling. We know that this is a team that not entirely reliant, but pretty heavily reliant on the three ball to go. They were just 3 of 21 from the three-point arc in this game, and I'm trying to find the team breakdown numbers for the season so far to see if that's a season worst percentage. I can't imagine it isn't, but I just want to clarify that in the K-State game notes today. The Kansas State going 3 for 21 from 3, 14%. That is their worst mark of the year. They were 6 of 30 in their loss to Seton Hall. They were 6 of 23 in their loss to Bowling Green. They were 5 of 24 in their narrow win over Tulsa. So you notice a theme here. When Kansas State can't connect reliably from 3, hard for them to win games, no matter who they're playing, especially if you're playing the number 10 team in the country, and you have to score. You have to score to keep up with BYU, because even on an off night for BYU offensively, they only shot 44%, turned the ball over 19 times. actually thought Kansas State's defense was what kept them in the game for the better part of the 40 minutes. K-State's still going to, or rather BYU's still going to get theirs because they have scorers all over. Obviously, AJ Dybantsa is a headline guy, but Rob Wright can get a bucket whenever. Richie Saunders has that quick three-point release and can get a three off whenever. He didn't shoot it great today, but he still hit as many threes as K-State did as a team. And Keita offers that interior scoring threat that Kansas State really doesn't have. Also, he's really big. He's 6'9", 229. I don't believe that. I think that's a misprint. I think he's a foot taller than that. I think he must be 7'9", the way that Kansas State just kind of got bullied by him in the low post. He was stronger. He was more athletic, blocking shots. His play, I mean, the box score spells it out pretty good. 11 points and 16 rebounds. You can see how good Keita was looking at the box, but I don't even think that does him justice. As good as Dybantsa was, 24 and 8, even with 7 turnovers. As good as Rob Wright was, 18, though it took 15 shots to get it. In the scoring department, I thought Keita was the game changer. And he was a game changer because Kansas State had to respond to his threat and muscle and play big. And they had as many as 2 guys on the floor who cannot score for the better part of that basketball game. And that's just a really hard thing for K-State to overcome. We played Taj Manning 17 minutes, 4 shots, 4 points. Plays so hard. I like Taj Manning. You can tell how hard he's playing. He's a really easy guy to like, but not an offensive threat. Moby Kegaruka, 14 minutes, 3 shots, 2 points, not an offensive threat. Doreen Buka, I didn't think was very good tonight anyway, but 0 for 2 from the field in 15 minutes. I thought he got out muscled. I didn't think he was tough enough in this game, and K-State needs him to play like he's 7-2, and I didn't think he did tonight. I think it was a disappointing game for Buka, who's had some nice moments for K-State this year, but Keita was looking at that young man like a spaghetti dinner. He saw food every time Buka was on the floor in the paint, and so his teammates did as well. It just wasn't good enough from him. There were some things to like about Kansas State, and I think it starts with their defensive effort, which is a wild thing to say. Look, they gave up 83 points. They lost by 10, number 10 team in the country. This is already not established as not a real good defensive team. But I thought defensively, the effort tonight is what they're going to need to be successful in Big 12 play because they did force the 19 turnovers. Unfortunately, they didn't capitalize on enough of those turnovers. That was the thing Jerome Tang pointed out in his post-game radio interview is Kansas State only had 17 points off of the 19 turnovers. You get 10 more points off of turnovers. You get 1.5 points off of every turnover, average 1.5 points per turnover. All of a sudden, it's a very different basketball game. K-State just wasn't able to respond or to cash in as many of those turnovers. But they created those turnovers. They made it hard for Dybantsa and Wright to get theirs. Dybantsa is really good. Quick aside on that. There's some debate as to who's going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. A lot of people like Cam Boozer out of Duke. I do too. He's 6'10", good vision, reads the game really well. I love Cam Boozer. Darren Peterson, very good at basketball. Problem is he doesn't play a lot of basketball. That might be an issue for teams maybe looking at him as a possible number 1 pick. But I'll take Dybantsa without a second thought. If I have the number 1 pick, if the ping pong balls bounce my way in the NBA draft lottery, I'd take Dybantsa and I wouldn't look back. 6'9", stronger than he looks, smooth, gets to the rim, affects the game in a lot of ways. You could tell how good he was. And he got his 24 tonight. K-State made him work for it, but he got it. And give him a lot of credit. Give Keita, like I said, a lot of credit. I thought he was BYU's best player. Boscovich off the bench was really good for them. 9 points, hit a couple of threes. And again, that's a guy who's 6'10". Hey, effort, athleticism, wingspan, all those things are nice. And K-State has that from their bigs. But sometimes there's no substitute for actually being that tall. K-State doesn't have a lot of guys who are that tall. And they certainly don't have a guy who's tall enough to make you guard him, or tall enough and a good enough scorer to make you guard him outside in the perimeter. They just they don't have that, and it was pretty obvious in this game that that's the piece they're missing because K-State has good guards. I thought PJ Haggerty largely played well, got 24 points. David Castillo, this game, this opponent, that wasn't too big for him. I thought he played well. Abdi Bashir got 16. He was the only guy to make 3. But K-State is missing that serious scoring threat on the interior. Somebody like a Naquan Tomlin, who, even though Naquan wasn't a real good three-point shooter, he had enough juice off the bounce that you had to respect his threat. if he was away from the basket. And K-State has too many guys that you just leave alone. You don't have to guard Moby Kegaruke if he's standing in the corner. You don't have to guard Taj Manning if he's standing on the wing. You don't have to guard Doreen Buka if he's in the high post. You don't have to guard Kamari McGriff if he's not 3 feet from the basket. You don't have to guard guys in those spots. On the floor, there's just not enough space, not as much space for K-State to create. Then you're relying on hitting some tough shots or making your threes. And K-State didn't make their threes tonight, and that's kind of what ended up being their downfall here this evening. So K-State loses. I don't think that it's a particularly discouraging loss for K-State because they lost to a better team. They did some good things on the defensive end. Their guards show that they're going to be able to score. I don't think this was a bad or a gut punch loss, but it was very clear who the better team was, and BYU just kind of kept K-State at arm's length, never let them get closer than 6 in the second half. K-State never trailed by more than 12. They were in it. They competed for 40 minutes, but the bar is not competing. The bar is winning, and in K-State, not good enough to get over that bar against this BYU team. One last note before I get out of here. You probably heard it intermittently during the broadcast. There were a lot of BYU fans here. And I'm not sure if that's a road trip they all decided to make, or if they flew in en masse and decided they wanted to be here to check Bramlage Coliseum off of their list, or what it was. There are a lot of BYU fans here. The game was a sellout, but the BYU contingent was loud. They were noticeably loud. I don't know how the BYU chant, how audible that was on TV, but it was pretty audible in the building. So shout out to the BYU fans. They showed out. They support their guys, and they were rewarded. They saw a solid performance, a performance befitting a top 10 team in the country, I think, from BYU tonight. For K-State, a performance that I think suggests a little better shooting, a little better rim conversion, that they can play with a team of this caliber, but they've got a ways to go, and they've got some flaws that, especially against supersized teams like BYU, are going to make it really hard for them. That's my instant reaction to this one. We'll have more about this coming up on the 580 Sports Talk on Monday. We'll be live from 3 until 6. We'll respond to this one and the much worse loss that KU just took in Orlando against UCF. That place is cursed for KU. It cannot win at UCF. That is the damnedest thing I've ever heard of. Also, Darren Peterson doesn't play basketball, I guess. Just 11 minutes left, and that's all he can give you is one incredible half and a couple of minutes in the second half, and that's it. And that sucks. That's too bad. Like I don't mean to make fun, but if he isn't available, then all his abilities don't matter if he doesn't have availability. And so we'll get to that. We'll obviously get to the Chiefs regular season finale. That's all coming up on Monday's edition of 580 Sports Talk, 3 until 6 Central Time, PM, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, 580WIBW.com, and these same video channels. My name is Dan Lucero. Have a great rest of your afternoon and sports weekend, and I will talk to all of you on Monday. Like and subscribe to the Facebook page and the YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you on Monday on 5.